August 13th, 1704, dawn breaks over the Bavarian countryside. A French commander stands at his tent, sipping hot chocolate, watching the sunrise. He's confident, relaxed. The enemy is retreating. Victory is certain. Then he looks toward the horizon. What he sees makes him freeze in absolute terror. The entire plain before him, stretching for miles, is covered in enemy soldiers, tens of thousands of them. Where they came from he cannot comprehend. They shouldn't be here. They should be running. Within hours, 100,000 men will collide in what becomes the bloodiest battle of the century, and by sunset, the fate of Europe and the future of the entire world will be decided on this field. This is the story of how one brilliant commander marched his army 250 miles, wrong-footed the greatest military power on earth, and changed history forever at the Battle of Blenheim. The year is 1704 and France is winning. King Louis XIV, the Sun King, commands 5 massive armies across Europe. His forces dominate every theatre of war. His plan is simple and devastating. Capture Vienna, knock Austria out of the War of Spanish Succession, and unite France and Spain under Bourbon rule. France will become the unquestioned master of Europe. Britain, Louis expects them to retreat back across the Channel. Their dreams of continental influence shattered forever. The situation is desperate. A French-Bavarian army under the Count de Marsin and Maximilian of Bavaria is marching east toward Vienna. Behind them, the Duke de Tallard commands a powerful reserve force at Strasbourg, ready to reinforce at a moment's notice. Austria is crumbling. A Hungarian uprising diverts their attention. The Ottoman Empire circles like a vulture, sensing weakness. If Vienna falls, the war is over. France wins. The balance of world power shifts permanently. But in the Netherlands, one man refuses to accept this fate. John Churchill, the Duke of Marlborough, stares at his maps and realizes something terrifying. He cannot save Europe from where he stands. The battle that will decide everything is happening 250 miles away. So he makes an audacious decision. He will march his entire army south, and he will drag the war with him. On May 19th, 1704, Marlborough's army begins moving. He tells the Dutch government he's heading to the Moselle River. He deploys fake pontoon bridges. He uses every trick of misdirection he knows. The French take the bait. They scramble to respond, trying to guess his destination. But Marlborough doesn't stop. His army marches at a blistering pace, 80 miles per day. The Dutch provide barges to ship supplies down the Rhine. Depots are pre-positioned at every stop. It's a masterpiece of military logistics. By June 3rd, he's crossed the Main River. The French are convinced he's targeting Landau. Then Marlborough does the unthinkable. He turns away from the Rhine entirely. On June 10th, he meets Prince Eugene of Savoy at Mundelsheim. The two men, mutual admirers, devise their strategy. 3 days later, they're joined by the Margrave of Baden. The Allied forces are now formidable enough to challenge any French army. But here's the problem. Tallard is racing to unite with Marsin and Maximilian. If he succeeds, the combined Franco-Bavarian force will be unstoppable. The race is on. Eugene of Savoy takes 30,000 men west to delay Tallard and Villeroy. Marlborough and the Margrave push into Bavaria, hoping to force Maximilian out of his French alliance, one way or another. On July 2nd, they storm the fortress at Schellenberg. It's a bloodbath. 10,000 men die, but Marlborough takes the fortress and secures a route into Bavaria and control of the Danube. Unable to force the Franco-Bavarian army into battle, Marlborough makes a brutal choice. For weeks, his army devastates the Bavarian countryside. Farms burn, villages are ransacked. His message is clear. If he cannot destroy Maximilian in battle, he will destroy Bavaria's ability to support France. But it doesn't stop Tallard. On August 5th, the French commander links his forces with Marsin and Maximilian at Augsburg. The Allied commanders are now outnumbered and in danger. August 12th, 1704, a French cavalry patrol under the Marquis de Silly captures 4 Allied labourers near the Danube. Under interrogation, all 4 tell the same story. Marlborough and Eugene are withdrawing north to Nordlingen. The Allied offensive has failed. The Duke de Tallard is thrilled. He's outmaneuvered the Great Marlborough. His position is perfect. He commands the plain north of Hochstedt, with Bavarian allies holding the heights around Lutzingen and the vital village of Blenheim by the Danube. Multiple streams create obstacles for any Allied advance. That night, the French and Bavarian camps celebrate. Wine flows freely. Fires burn high. Soldiers dance and carouse. They'll soon march to winter quarters. Most won't see fighting for 6 months. The road to Vienna is open. France's victory is assured. The French army goes to sleep in confident, restful ease. But Marlborough and Eugene haven't withdrawn. They've done the opposite. At 2 o'clock in the morning on August 13th, the Allied army rises in darkness. By 3 o'clock, they're assembled and marching. At dawn, the Count of Merod-Westerlo is sleeping in a barn near Blenheim when his valet shakes him awake. "The enemy are here!" Westerlo laughs at his servant's panic. But then he walks to the door and looks out. The entire sunlit plain is covered in enemy squadrons, thousands upon thousands of them. He accepts a cup of hot chocolate from his trembling valet, then rides at full speed toward the French camp. What he finds horrifies him. Most of the French army is still in bed. Tallard himself had just sent a reassuring message to King Louis, reporting that the enemy appeared to be withdrawing. Now he rides out in disbelief as Allied forces appear like red phantoms. On the high ground before him, Marlborough has done it again. He's done exactly what the French least expected. The trap is set, but it's the French who are caught in it. 100,000 men now face each other across the Hochstadt plain. The French have superior numbers and more guns, but the Allies have already won the initiative. Marlborough's plan is brilliant and brutal. He positions his forces with Lieutenant General John Cutts commanding the left wing opposite Blenheim village, Marlborough himself taking the centre, and Eugene of Savoy commanding the right wing. But there's a problem. Eugene's wing has to navigate difficult terrain to get into position. The Allied army has to wait, while French artillery pounds them for hours. From 8:30 a.m. until 1 p.m., Marlborough's men endure relentless bombardment. Men lie in the grass, trying to avoid the cannonballs. Engineers work under fire to build walkways across the marshy ground. Meanwhile, Tallard, Marsin, and Maximilian meet in Blenheim's church tower to plan. The conference ends badly. Maximilian urges Tallard to position forces close to the marsh to cut down the Allies as they cross. Tallard arrogantly refuses, insisting he'll let them cross and then destroy them in the open. The Franco-Bavarian command is fractured. The Allies are unified. At 12:30 p.m., Eugene finally signals he's ready. Marlborough gives the order to advance. What follows is coordinated chaos. Cutts' forces assault Blenheim village in wave after wave. They're slaughtered. But that's exactly the point. Marlborough needs the French to think this is his main attack. On the right wing, Eugene attacks repeatedly, each time thrown back with heavy casualties. But he keeps coming, again and again and again. The sacrifice is working. The French commander at Blenheim, the Marquis de Clérambault, sees the pressure mounting and makes a catastrophic mistake. Without informing Tallard, he orders the French reserves into the village. 10,000 French soldiers cram into tiny Blenheim. They're so tightly packed, they can't fire their weapons or receive orders. Marlborough sees the error instantly. He orders Cutts to stop attacking and simply hold those 10,000 French soldiers in place. The numerical advantage is gone. Marlborough orders the general advance. His main force crosses the Nebel stream and begins forming up on the plain. For over an hour, while the French launch half-hearted attacks, Marlborough methodically arranges his forces. 7 battalions of veteran infantry in front, 72 squadrons of cavalry behind them in 2 lines, and 11 more infantry battalions in reserve. Artillery commander Horcroft Blood coordinates his guns. Against this force, Tallard can only muster 64 squadrons of cavalry and 9 battalions of inexperienced infantry. Tallard desperately rides to Marsin and Maximilian, begging for reinforcements. They refuse. His arrogance that morning has come back to haunt him. They're too preoccupied with Eugene's attacks to help. At 5 o'clock, Marlborough's army advances. The Allied cavalry, still fresh despite the late hour, charges at full gallop into the exhausted French gendarmes. British cavalry tactics prove their superiority over the French method. British infantry platoon firing with heavier musket balls overwhelms the French ranking system. The French line breaks, first in small groups, then in a flood. Tallard's army collapses into a desperate, scrambling mob. The slaughter is immense. Tallard is captured along with 14,000 of his men. Marcin and Maximilian escape with their lives, but little else. French casualties, dead, wounded, and captured, total nearly 30,000 men. Inside Blenheim village, Clérambault realizes the magnitude of his blunder. In despair, he attempts to swim the Danube in full armor. He drowns. The 10,000 French soldiers trapped in Blenheim, including some of France's finest regiments, surrender the next morning. The Duke of Marlborough, exhausted and covered in the dust of battle, sits down and writes a message to his wife on the back of a tavern bill. "I have not time to say more, but to beg you will give my duty to the Queen, and let her know her army has had a glorious victory." The Battle of Blenheim shatters French military supremacy. Louis XIV's armies, considered invincible, have been decisively beaten. Vienna is saved. Austria remains in the war. The War of Spanish Succession will drag on for another decade, but the outcome is no longer in doubt. When peace finally comes, it's Britain, not France, that emerges as Europe's dominant power. That dominance will last for 2 centuries, shaping the modern world, all because one August morning a French commander looked out across a plain and saw an impossible sight, an army that shouldn't be there, led by a general who refused to accept defeat. The Battle of Blenheim claimed over 30,000 lives in a single day, but it secured the freedom of Europe and altered the course of human history. Marlborough's 250-mile march and his victory on the fields of Hochstadt proved that genius, audacity, and unity could overcome even the mightiest empire, and it all began with one simple decision: to drag the war with him. If you enjoyed this story of military genius and impossible odds, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. We cover the battles and commanders that shaped our world, from ancient Rome to the world wars. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode, and let us know in the comments what battle should we cover next. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.